Very good. It's 1:30, and so we will begin the Liquor Control Board meeting for today. There's a few items on the agenda. The police chief is on his way, and so we'll just start and he can join us. We have a quorum too, don't we, Steve? So
Yes, we do. Yep.
Okay, so let's begin. We have a few items on the agenda. Number one is to approve the minutes of the February 17th, 2021 meeting. If there are any changes and corrections, we'd be willing to make those, but otherwise we would accept a motion.
I move to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number two, review liquor applications, and we have a few here. Number 2A is an application for the Class ABH alcoholic beverage license for Aperium Hotel Group doing business as Jasper Hotel to be located at 215 Broadway North. Steve, you can get us started.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. So the ABH is the full service hotel license. Was recommended for the Jasper Hotel. This is the hotel that's in the Block 9 building in part of that complex. We've done the background check. There's no issues with anything with this license. They are going to do some outdoor dining along with this, along with their indoor dining, and then of course with their location to the plaza, there'll be some. They'll have to take out serving permits, but there'll be some serving out in the plaza during events and stuff like that. There are members from the hotel group here. I don't know if they want to make any comments or anything.
So if there's any comments from the panel, but otherwise, if their representatives would like to step up, and I guess from our own curiosity, if you wouldn't mind us being able to ask a couple questions, we'd appreciate it. If you'd use that podium over there and just give your name, and I guess what we'd like to hear is kind of a summary of what you plan on doing. And obviously, we welcome you to the community, and we're looking forward to your new business and wish you luck. So go ahead and introduce yourselves and kind of give us a brief summary. Thank you.
Well, I am Marty Jensen. I am the Director of Human Resources, so in charge of all employee training, everything employee related. So I'll be responsible for all the training related to the serving of the alcohol, the tips training that we do, as well as Serve Safe certification, making sure that everybody has everything that they need in place.
My name's Kyle Etker. I'm the Director of Finance for the Jasper Hotel. And as you mentioned earlier, there will be seating for there'll be 125 guest rooms, but then on the ground level, there will be seating for about 150 people indoors, and then 67 seats outdoors to be used, in the summer months. And then in addition, we have a fifth floor ballroom where we will have capacity for about 300 people.
That's great. And if anybody has any questions, if you don't mind, I'll ask it. So can you give us a ballpark figure of when you plan on opening and I know that's hard to do, but if
Yep.
I think a lot of people are looking forward to it. And so if you don't mind sharing, we'd appreciate it.
We're hoping for the beginning of June. So construction did get set back a little bit, but hopefully the beginning of June is when we'll see. Hoping to be open by the 10th, but don't want to throw that out there too much yet, but around that time frame.
That's very exciting. And the other question I had for you, so are you hiring right now? Is that, where you're getting your staffing from?
You need a job?
So, so right now we do have 12 full-time employees, mainly our executive leadership team and some of our Rosewild general managers on board, and then our chief operating officer as well. Engineer, not officer. So we will be posting most line level positions that last week of April, and we'll be doing some hiring events in those first 2 weeks of May. Hoping to have offers out by the middle of May for people that need to put 2-week notices in, and then have everybody come in. We're going to be doing a mass onboarding of, we're probably going to be onboarding about 60 to 80 employees.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other questions. And Chief, thank you for joining us. And we went through the background checks, and I don't think there were any concerns with that. So
I think so.
I don't know if anybody has any questions further. Otherwise, we'd accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Good luck, and we're looking forward
Thank you.
to
Yeah,
joining the
we'll have
downtown.
an opening event.
Thank you. All right, moving on to number 2B, application to transfer a Class FA Golf alcoholic beverage license from Big Irv's Bar and Grill LLC, doing business as Big Irv's at Rose Creek, to Living the Dream LLC, doing business as Legends, to be located at 1500 East Rose Creek Parkway South. Steve?
And this is an application for the license holder for Rose Creek, the golf course. It is the FA Golf license. Big Irv's, we transferred that license to them about a year ago. They ran last year, did some big modifications to the building and kind of got things back in shape out there. It's kind of a little bit of a handhold with this one between the Park District and us. The Park District picks who they want as a vendor, and then they have to clear the license transfer part. The people with Legends are currently operating in Moorhead, and this will be a new location for them in Fargo.
Chief, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, there were some notes on this one as far as the background, or I don't know if, Steve, you were going to talk about that, but to me, there was a few concerns, and I don't know if you want to share those with us.
Well, I would have to review that one more time to remember exactly what those concerns were. I don't have that in front of me.
No, that's fine, and Steve, maybe you can help us out, but
Yep.
from what I'm reading there was just some of the questions were
I think on the application, there were a few things that were missing. All the time,
That was on that's a different application.
Okay.
Ivy Rose is the one that had the
that one we're still working on, but,
Yeah.
so then we're all good as far as the background. Is that, to summarize that?
I believe so, yep.
I just said some minor things. They didn't check a box correctly and things.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so other than that, if there are any questions, or if the new management wants to get up and talk, obviously we should have to treat everybody fairly, so if you want to get up, we'd sure be willing to listen. And if not, that's okay, we'll move on.
Move to approve.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign, motion carries. And we're moving on to 2C, application for a transfer of a Class H alcoholic beverage license from Pizza Ranch, 45th Street Incorporated, doing business as Pizza Ranch, with a stock ownership change, no corporate name change, to be located at 4480 23rd Street South. Steve?
This is the Pizza Ranch, that's out on 45th, and the people that were operating the business sold everything, lock, stock, and barrel, and they did it as buying all the stock in the corporation. And so it was a stock change. The people that purchased it have other pizza ranches. I think they have a half a dozen of them in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. And so there are a couple of kind of like these check the boxes things that we're trying to get some answers on before we bring it to city commission. But I think if we can get those answers, there really isn't anything criminal history or credit history in the background check. If I can get those couple other questions answered, I think we'd be ready to bring it to city commission. If you're comfortable with that
Okay.
approach.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll accept a motion, and I think we should stipulate then that you have those, when it comes to city commission, you have those questions answered.
Why don't you make that motion then, Steve?
I would just want to make sure the chief's comfortable with that. You're, okay. So I would make that motion that we move to approve this transfer application with the stipulation that we get the rest of the application completed before we go to city commission.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, D, application for a GH alcoholic beverage license from Harahar, I'll apologize for the pronunciation, LLC, doing business as Himalayan Yak, to Four Stars Group LLC, doing business as Himalayan Yak, to be located at 1450 25th Street South, Suite 160. Steve?
And this is very similar to the prior one where somebody new is purchasing the business and they're going to transfer the license. A GH, it's kind of a 6 to 1, half dozen to another, whether they transfer the license or just get a new application, but this was the route they wanted to go. This one, again, when the chief was on vacation this last week, we did get we had a couple of boxes that needed to be checked. We did get the answers to those, and so I am comfortable with this one. There wasn't anything, I believe, in the background check, criminal history, or credit history that was of concern.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
No, except that I wasn't able to review that because I wasn't here. So
Right.
As long as
So-
you looked at it, if you're comfortable with it, then we're
Yep,
good.
Ross went through them and said, you got to get answers to these questions.
Perfect, thank
Yep,
you.
Yep.
Chief, we don't mean to put a lot of pressure on you just when you're,
It's all good.
that's what happens when you're the new guy.
We'll
You get
move
to-
through it, yeah.
All right, with that, any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we'll accept the motion.
I'd move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2E, application to transfer a Class A alcoholic beverage license from Lucky U LLC, doing business as Lucky's 13 Pub, to Eclectic Culinary Concepts Incorporated, doing business as Lucky's 13 Pub, to be located at 4301 17th Avenue South. 5% ownership change. Steve?
So in this case, Lucky U, which was doing business as Lucky's 13, had two primary owners. One of them passed away, and so the remaining primary owner brought two new people in, and so that was the transfer to the new corporation. So it went from 2 people to 3 people. Again, with this one, in the chief's absence, Ross highlighted a few things of concern that we needed to get questions answered on. We got those questions answered during this last week, and so I feel comfortable moving this on. I don't believe there were any issues in the criminal history or credit history in the background check.
Very good.
Deputy Chief Renner said no, then I am good.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? We will accept a motion.
Move to approve.
Motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 3, update on Ivy and Rose liquor license application.
So Monday night, we did, at the city commission meeting, we had it advertised for a public hearing. And so at that time, I had spoken to the applicants. They have some issues still, or, questions to answer on the application. They had, the last time that we saw this at Liquor Control, they still needed to get a permit to sprinkler the building. They needed to work with health to get the proper sinks in. I think there was something with building inspections or fire. Anyway, they had a lot of boxes to check. And my conversation with them prior to the city commission meeting was, let's get all that stuff done. We'll re-advertise. We're not going to reapply. We're not going to go through the background check again, but we're going to re-advertise when everything is ready, and then we can just move it through. So I just wanted to kind of give that update. They have gotten the building permit issued. They needed to get an architect's stamp on their plans, and they found an architect, signed off on the plans, and so they're making progress. It's just going a lot slower than they thought.
So from our perspective, do we need to take any action, or can we
I just wanted to update the
So-
body here, what's going to happen. You'll see this again probably in a couple of months
Okay.
when they get everything done.
But we don't need to formally continue it or anything like that. It will just be.
No, we withdrew it
Okay.
withdrew the application at city commission, so that was the formal action.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, number 4, moving on. Request from local law firm to amend the Class A, FA, and FARZ liquor license so that $50,000 in food sales per month would meet the food sales requirements. And so with that, Steve, maybe you can, I think we were all here, but if you're representative, if you want to go up and introduce yourself and then give your perspective, we would welcome that.
Thank you. I'm Brent Edison. I'm back again. I didn't have a cane last time, but I'm 3 weeks out from a new knee, so pleased to be with you today. I think basically just the gist of what we're proposing here is we're suggesting, I think I suggested last time, that the current measure of what qualifies as a restaurant for purposes of an FA license has become over time antiquated, and And I speak about the 50-50 ratio, that it has to be over 50% or at least 50% food sales. And we suggested, and I suggested last time that, with changing consumer diner habits, that may have made sense at one time, but it no longer does in today's age of craft beers and high-end cocktails and bottles of wine. It's pretty easy to have moderate drinking tip the alcohol bill over the food bill. And I'm here on behalf of North Star Hospitality, doing business in Southtown Poorhouse. We suggest, hey, by any reasonable measure, this is a high-volume restaurant. We handed out a letter from U.S. Foods saying 45 accounts. It was in the top 3 of active accounts for food purchases. If you go there at any time, you might see 10 servers, 5 to 6 cooks, a dishwasher, food expo worker. A full menu has been handed out, and we'd suggest that this is by any reasonable measure a restaurant. We understand the purpose for the FA original requirement is still in existence of a 50-50 ratio. Greater than that, we understand that why that was put into place, to make sure that alcohol sales are an adjunct of or incident to a restaurant. But we suggest, for the reason I've said, that in today's world requires more flexibility. And one period that could be tilted 1% over, we got a violation. The next would be 1% under, you're fine. Then you'd be 1% over, you got a violation. From an enforcement standpoint, it's too inflexible. We suggest it's antiquated. And so for that reason, we suggested that a better measure would be to have, to determine whether it's a true restaurant is the volume of food sales. And we suggested a $50,000 per month in food sales would qualify. Now, there's nothing magic about that $50,000 figure, and it could be lower than that, $25,000, whatever. We had to put something in there, and so we think by any reasonable measure that would qualify as a bona fide restaurant. And so we have submitted the proposal for your consideration. I left here last time full of optimism because there were discussions of maybe having a task force and looking at this, and heads were nodding as I talked about some of this, and so we've asked this time to appear to move the ball forward, and so we had asked for your favorable consideration of the proposed amendment.
Well, and I do appreciate your comments, and I'm not trying to make an excuse, but we've had a few issues that were a little more important than this. Like, there's a lot of bars and restaurants that weren't going to survive. That's what we were concerned about. And so, and a lot of us, we didn't know for sure what the future is going to be. We still don't, but we're a little more confident. So we have heard it, and I will admit, we have not worked at this at the time we should have, but we've had other priorities. And so I apologize for that. However, I will say one of the easy ways to solve this is just to buy the correct license instead of asking us to change licenses. That's another option. I do think we have some things to address as a city as far as the number of licenses and things like that. But speaking for the people that already own licenses, they're concerned about the value of theirs versus this. And I'm sure you're aware of that too. But anyway, I'd love to have other people's comments, but we do know it's an issue, and we do know we need to work on it, but we've had other priorities, and not to speak for everybody else, but I think that's part of the reason. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, can I just respond real quickly?
Go ahead.
Well, on the first point, my client appreciates the efforts here that you spoke of and taking time to address those. And so thank you for those. And we certainly understand the importance of those and how they take precedence here.
And I do think that this is an issue, and we will look at it. But the other thing I will say, and not to brag, but what we did in the city of Fargo was extremely unique, where we waived utilities, and it's Steve's credit, not anybody else's, but our concept of waiving license fees and utilities. You ask anybody that owns a bar or restaurant in Fargo how that went. That was fantastic. And
Yep.
I'm a little disappointed that the rest of the country didn't follow our model, because it was very smart, and I'm very proud of it. And I think it's going to help some of these small bars and restaurants survive, frankly. And so I totally agree with what your point is, but you got to give us some time to digest this. And I do think you have to look at the other liquor license holders from their perspective. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, just on that point, and not to monopolize the time here, so just bear with me one second, but just on the second point, the availability of a different license. My client has a lease requirement to have an FA license. And so that's not a solution. And so just to make that point, I think Chad Klimek was here last time and made that point. But anyway, I'll stand back unless there's questions.
No, I appreciate that. Commissioner Gary.
Do most restaurants do 50,000 a month in food sales? I don't know how much they would do.
I have no idea. We don't track it that way. You know, an Applebee's, for instance, would do maybe $2 million a year in food sales. So, to Mr. Edison's point, is $50,000 in food sales a lot? Well, you know, part of it could depend on the size of your
Right.
operation. If Nicole's did 50,000 in food sales, I'm guessing she'd be ecstatic. Maybe she does more than that. I don't know. I have a couple of concerns with this, and I know Mr. Edison would like a formal action on this board, at least, you know, for today with this presentation. So a couple of things that come to mind are the longevity and the history, like you're talking about. When the FA came into play, it was originally for Chili's and Fridays. Those were the first two FAs that came to town. And at that time, it was 65% food sales. So, you know, when you get up to that kind of level, there's no doubt, you know, that you're operating as a restaurant. The problem that I see with setting a fixed dollar amount, if you say 50,000 in food sales and they do 150,000 in alcohol sales, I mean, I don't think in anybody's definition that you would think that that's a restaurant before it's a bar. And the purpose of the FA license is it's a restaurant license. You know, it's not a bar license that does food. I've been doing some research on other cities in the state, and you know, we've been accused of having alphabet soup, which of course has all come about because of a purpose. There are some cities in the state that have different levels. If you do 40% food, if you do 50% food, if you do 60% food, and here's your license for that. You know, well, do we really want to create that many more licenses? So to me, I think the key word was adjunct, and I can't think of a better definition of being adjunct. If the alcohol sales is greater than the food sales, the alcohol sales is no longer adjunct. It's no longer supplementary to the food sales. The reason that we use the 50% is a tie to state law. So state law, it starts with the overarching principle that if you're under 21, you can't be where alcohol is, okay? And then they give you the exceptions. And there are two exceptions. And the one exception is if it's in a restaurant where food sales exceed alcohol sales, then the minor can be in there. So an Applebee's or something like that. The other exception is if food sales don't exceed alcohol sales, the minor can still be there if they're with their parent. So, you know, that's that 50%. That's why the 50% is important, I think, in this. I don't know if there's anybody else who wants to make comments about it, but.
So if this is okay with everybody, what I'd like to do, Dave's an excellent bar owner and a reasonable businessman. And so I think it'd be better to meet privately and we'll try to work on a solution. And then we'll go from there. If that's acceptable, we can set up a meeting with Steve, and if whoever on our commission wants to join us, we'll meet and try to come up with some solutions. And then by our next meeting, we'll have something figured out if that's acceptable to you. But I apologize, but I think we can figure something out, and I think that'd be the best way to do it.
Sounds like a good plan to me.
So with that, we don't need to take a motion. We can continue this. I think what we should do is continue it, then we know it'll be acted on. If that's all right with you, we'll just continue this item for our next meeting, if that's okay with you, Steve. Does that make sense?
As long as the applicants or the people making the proposal are fine with that. I was under the impression that you wanted formal action.
Well, we're not going to take any formal action today, so that's not an option. So this is your best alternative. And Dave, if you give me a thumbs up, we'll plan on that. This isn't me. No. Okay, whoever's meeting, if you give me the thumbs up, and if you're willing to do that, that's what we'll do.
Well, okay, to clarify the participants in the meeting, you've mentioned Dave,
No, I apologize. The owner of the business, if he wants to join.
my client.
Yeah, Chad Clemick.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that okay with you?
that is absolutely fine with me. I appreciate that action today and look forward to further discussions. Thank you.
Very good. So do we need a motion on that, Steve?
Not if we're going to continue.
Is that acceptable to everybody on the commission? Is that all right? I didn't mean to speak for everybody, but I think that's a good way. All right, moving on. Number 5, request to transfer the Chef's Table liquor license FA 29 from the Sanctuary 670 4th Avenue North to the Boiler Room location at 210 North Broadway. Steve?
So this request came from the license holder, Dan Herder. He has multiple licenses in the city of Fargo. And really, this, I think, is for ease of business operations, just to move this license. It was originally a barbacoa down on the south end. When that operation ceased, they moved it downtown to Chef's Table. They've been using it primarily as a catering license. Anytime they go out and cater, they use that license. And so this would allow them, a little bit ease of operations, I guess, to do this. And there are really 2 requests, 5 and 6 are kind of together. But I thought it was best to separate the 2 requests and just act on independently.
So Steve, to summarize this, they're basically just moving their licenses around.
Correct. Yep, they're moving, there's no ownership change, anything like that. The request is to move from Chef's Table that's at the Sanctuary, to move that license to where the boiler room is. And then the second request is to give him some time to see if he can think of another business venture for that other license.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. It's simplification, right now, because Barbacoa as a company still exists. That is where the revenue runs through. It's a separate sales tax filing, insurance plan, separate set of books, separate set of inventory. So we're really just trying to simplify that. Obviously, bar catering has been few and far between for the last year, so it's been pretty inactive. It's just going to make our lives a lot more simple if we could wrap that up under the boiler room's business operations. And then consequently, the boiler room license, which is an FARZ, that would now just become unused. And we don't have any immediate plans for that, but if we could hang on to it for 6 months, there was an investment there. We'd love to try and find a purpose for it. We're not sure what that is yet, but if we could get a little time to work that out, that'd be awesome.
Very good, thank you. Are there any comments or questions? And I think we could combine those 2 with one motion unless you want to have them separate, whatever your wishes.
I think together is fine. Holding it for 6 months, is that done often?
That was a discussion we had the other day, and the 6-month time frame is kind of, and then we asked that they come back if they want to do it longer. So let's say in 6 months, Dan says, yeah, on the horizon, I can see this. He comes back, asks for another 6 months. So
I just remember the full commission didn't look too kindly on it last time. So
I think that the last time the request was for another year and a half, and it wasn't at exactly when the business closed. And those are the 2 concerns.
Okay.
So
I'll move to approve 5 and 6.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second,
Motion and a second, any further discussion?
Could I ask a question? Are you going to cease operation then of the Chef's Table business altogether?
No, just the alcohol
Just the
portion
alcohol
of that.
portion. Okay.
Yeah, it would still do the food catering.
Sounds good.
Very good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 7, receive and file 2020 liquor audit report from Brady Martz. Steve?
So we did receive the 2020 audit report. There is one area that is of concern. I want to dig into it just a little deeper. It's actually at one of the golf courses. I think it's not the Big Irvs one. It's the, what was the name of it?
And I think at Edgewood, they have changed ownership.
Not Edgewood. That one changed too, but that one was okay.
Osgood?
Osgood was the one, Brutus. And so I need to dig into that one a little bit deeper. And so you may see something back in front of you with a formal report of a failure or something like that. So the golf license requires 50% food sales during the non-golf season, so October to April, whatever. And then during the golf season, it drops to 25% food sales. So I just want to make sure that when the auditors did that, that they, had the right numbers and we've got the right statistics in place here. So there may be something coming back if we've got any kind of action.
Are there any comments or questions about this? And basically, we can receive and file this and like, over time, if you have any other comments, we can revisit this too.
Yep, right. This is just receive and file.
Okay.
I'd make that motion.
Second. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 8, Fargo Police Department liquor license update. Chief.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Since our last meeting, myself and Commissioner Pepcorn have had the opportunity to meet with owners and operators for a couple of the establishments for which we had some concerns due to activities that had occurred there. I think the meetings were very productive in terms of providing the owners and operators with some suggestions as to how they could better improve safety and improve working relationships with the police department to help keep disorder and those that maybe can't follow the rules from participating in their business while allowing the business to continue to function effectively. And I think that, I don't know if Jim's here or anyone from, Jim in Africa nightclub. Okay. They indicated they may come to the meeting to talk about some of the suggestions. But I know that Mr. Swanek has already implemented ID scanners in his establishments, very inexpensive safety measure that will preclude fake identifications from getting people into taverns, so to help with the underage drinking issue. Also creates a database of customers in a sense. So if there is instances such as the incident at the Bismarck a few weeks back, that helps that owner work with the police department in terms of who may or may not be involved. So those meetings, I think, were very productive, and we'll continue to do that at least from the police department perspective, involving Commissioner Pepcorn as well as chair of the committee. Unless there's any questions, that's my report, sir.
Thank you very much, Chief. And can I just add a couple comments too? The thing that I appreciated was the Chief's philosophy was, if you're willing to work with us, with the police department in the city, and make some changes to improve safety, then we're not going to pursue penalties. But if, for example, if we had somebody that said, no, I'm not willing to do that, then our option is to do some type of penalty. And so I will say it was kind of interesting. Both establishments had different issues, but it was kind of the same solutions: improved cameras, improved lighting. And I will say the whole card reader thing, the IDs now, I mean, I don't know how you can tell the difference between a real ID and a fake ID. And so I guess from my perspective, I would encourage every bar owner to get them, just because I think you're protecting yourself and your employees from serving minors. I just think is a wise thing. So I was at the meetings and I was very pleased. And I do think both entities were proactive and making some changes. So I do think that's a great thing. The other thing I will say is it's not just the bars. It's also the city's responsibility. There are things that we can do better. The citizens, there's a lot of things that we need to improve on. And so sometimes I think the bars get blamed for a lot of things that are going on that really all of us should be involved in finding the solution. So I appreciate the chief's attitude, and I think it was good, and I appreciated the bar owner's attitude. But the main thing is, if our downtown, if it's not safe, we're seeing all this money being spent, and it's all for naught if people don't feel safe when they come down here. And so we've made a whole lot of effort, and so our work isn't done. We still have a lot to go, and so that's my comments about it too. And anybody willing to have anybody else? Commissioner Gary.
Are we going to recheck after a certain amount of months or something to make sure these new ideas and actions are working?
Absolutely. And to me, this is the critical time. I don't want to speak for the chief, but when it gets nice out, this is when the rubber meets the road. And I do think last year was a worst-case scenario. The pandemic and a lot of things exacerbated the issues. And I do think how we set the tone starting right now will affect how it goes. But I totally agree. But I'll give you an example. If we have another issue at these places, well, then that changes. And so
I just want to make sure we
No.
over time, 3 months or whatever you decide, something, come back and tell us how things are going.
No, and Commissioner, that's your call too. If you want to put it on the next agenda, and anybody here, that's our call. So
Sounds good.
any other comments or questions? And also from the public, if anybody wants any comments or questions, you're welcome at any time. But I hope I'm sending the message correct, that this isn't just the bar, it's not just them, it's all of us. And so I do think we have to have some better systems, some better lighting, some better cameras. But I will say, security cameras, everybody here's got one. And so I think we need to do a better job. And this is my one thing, I don't want to pick on the chief today, but I will, because he's the new guy. To me, what I wish we had was, if the public sees something going on, is there a way that we can send the picture, and anonymously if they want it to be, to forward it to the police department if there's an issue?
Actually, with the anticipated approval of our body-worn camera system, that technology will be available. And we'll be able to receive videos from the public as well. So that's part of future opportunities.
So and I apologize for derailing it, but does that make sense to you, that if a person wants to see something bad going on, that they can forward it on to the police? Can they do that anonymously? That's my question.
Well, I think we would want to know who the person is, because obviously you know how video can be edited. So we couldn't accept that at face value without something else to go with it. You know, a person to verify, I'm the one that took the video. We could, imagine the video we could create and send it to the police, and it may be doctored or somehow altered. So it's good that we have that technology on the precipice. I think it'll be very good for everybody. But yeah, we will have some requirements with that. And that's good stuff, and I think your comments about the video are accurate. A lot of establishments that have video over the course of time fail to really upgrade to current technology. And so even though you have a system in place, if it was from the 80s, 90s, or 2000s, it's probably not very good or as good as you would like it. So, I mean, it's not only criminal investigations, but, as owners of establishments, sometimes we have bad employees who commit theft and things of that nature. And so that type of video is going to help you in those types of cases as well. So all those things, from lighting to, as the commissioner said, the interactions with the police, we will be coming through more routinely, just checking in on licensed premise operations, again, with the focus on safety for the community, the public ways, that type of stuff. And those will be very proactive based contacts, unless we receive a call for some reason. And we, of course, encourage the establishment owners to contact us if you have a problem. If there's a problem in your establishment, it's not a negative that we got a call there and you're the caller to tell us something bad is happening. So we really want to work with you on that. And I think there's, moving forward, a better understanding of what calls for service indicate and do not indicate. And that's just one criteria, which requires a lot of other digging, actually, to really put context to it. So, again, we're going to be having more personnel downtown during the evening hours. So some of the patrol staffing has changed as well. And I think implementing these things now is an excellent time to have us prepared for the summer.
Just a couple more things. First of all, my wife made me go out on St. Patrick's Day, and so I was downtown, and I really enjoyed the officers walk through the establishment I was in. And that's the first time that's ever happened. I really appreciate that. That's our new chief. The other thing, the challenge I have for you is, I think it's great that the security, when there's an issue in your bar, you get it outside. I think that's great. But we have to figure out a way that isn't the end of the altercation, and there has to be a way that the bar doesn't get penalized to call the police and say, we have an issue, it's outside now, but to alert the police department. And so I think that's very important, Chief.
Absolutely right. No, I agree. I mean, we would encourage you to call. Pushing it out is probably better to get it out of that crowded environment. But yes, I would encourage you to call and say, hey, we've got a fight. We pushed it outside. at least we can send someone over to the area and make sure it didn't start up somewhere down the street and something else bad doesn't happen. So that's not a negative for the bar owner to call and do that.
Okay, and I apologize for all the conversation, but otherwise, I think we're ready to move on unless there are any other, and there's no action on this one. So the next item is number 9, Commissioner Garrig requested discussion regarding various liquor-related items. Commissioner Garrig.
There's two. One is policemen as security, I don't call them security guards, but security for these establishments. And the second one was the 100-foot rule. I'll start with the security. I had a bar owner contact me and ask if the police could be hired when they're off duty and wear their uniforms and work security at these bars. So I don't know, Chief, if you've been into this at all, or if you've heard
Yes,
of this.
we would not allow that for the obvious conflicts that would accrue. So our officers are public safety professionals. We do not allow them to be hired out for private security. Even if they were off-duty working in Fargo in a tavern would again create a conflict of interest in terms of their relationship as an on-duty law enforcement officer. So our policy does not allow for that. An establishment could hire other private security, and some of them do, to do those functions.
Easy. Okay. Then the second one, you guys, almost all of us were at the city commission meeting when at least 2 of the commissioners kicked back the 100-foot rule, and they wanted an up or down vote from this committee. They want a recommendation, right? So we had a discussion last time. You weren't here for the discussion. Basically, the 100-foot rule. Steve, you want to give a quick what that is again, just so I don't muddle it up?
How much history do you want?
No, just what it is, just what the rule is.
Oh, okay, so the 100-foot rule requires that an off-sale not be within 100 feet of another establishment, I guess, basically. So the other establishment would be a grocery store, a convenience store, or a pharmacy. I think those are the 3 categories.
Okay.
So,
Yep, so I'm basically going to make the same motion as I made last time to end the 100-foot rule. And if there's a second, we'll have an up and down vote. If there's a second, then obviously we have our decision there. So I'll make the motion and then have the city commission look at what we looked at.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? All right, motion dies for lack of a second. And so that's the end of our agenda. It is 2:12, so.
Pepcorn, I hate to jump in here, but I did actually want to weigh in on the 100-foot rule. We approach this from a bit of a different angle at the health department. We don't see a problem with the 100-foot rule as it stands, in terms of repealing it. Mm-hmm. But we would like to urge that if there is any action either here or at the commission, that some attention be paid to defining what the state rule says as a local rule. There is still a state rule that is going to get in the way in certain things, what is a barrier, those types of things. So there's a lot of information that has come out through various studies that putting up a physical barrier between children and alcohol sales does decrease its use throughout their life and increases health outcomes. So if this does continue, and I think it probably will continue to be a topic of discussion, the health department would recommend that you look at defining what the state would require of us as a replacement for the 100-foot rule. But we don't disagree that the 100-foot rule needs to, probably be altered somewhat.
Okay. And I apologize, I should have called on you. I apologize for not calling. And then we were going to do a little bit of summary just to talk about the potential upcoming changes, if you wouldn't mind doing that, Steve.
yeah, and just a couple comments too on the 100-foot rule. I know that there have been comments made that Fargo lost Costco because of the 100-foot rule. And I know I sat in on the meetings where Costco was fine with meeting our rules. I don't know what happened between that, the developers, and West Fargo, but in the end, Costco decided to move. So I don't feel like the 100-foot rule is at all the reason that we lost Costco. And if we have another large developer that wants to come in, or retailer, I think that we could look at addressing it at that time. The concern that I have is that everybody that has the off-sale license right now has met our rules that we have, including not only the local guys, but the large people, the Colburns and those people. They've all met the rules too. So I don't see a reason at this point to change the rule. And that's why I didn't second or move forward with it. So anyway, those comments. So if you want me, I'll
Let me just jump in. One example of that is just going on right now, and that's Target. And actually, they just announced that they're going to be redoing theirs, and they abided by the existing rules.
Exactly. Yep. So, as Commissioner mentioned, some changes that are going to happen to this committee, if you're not already aware of it. There have been some reasons that led up to a change in the makeup of this committee. It was interesting. Somebody asked me, how did this first come about? And back in the 60s and the 50s and before that, everything liquor related went directly to the city commission. And something happened I don't remember exactly what it was, but something happened in 1962, and Herschel Lashkowitz, the mayor at the time, appointed the police chief, the city attorney, and the city auditor, and then himself and one other commissioner to review a liquor issue. And that essentially was the first time that I could find in history where, that what has become the liquor board, met and discussed issues. We fast forward to where we are today. I don't know about the chief, but I know oftentimes I've worked with businesses and then something happens and now that business I've got to come up with a sanction or something like that. And it's not a comfortable position to be in. I think the chief has kind of said the same thing. We shouldn't be making the rules and then enforcing the rules. And so the change that is going through the city commission right now is an ordinance that will establish a liquor control board. It would be made up of one commissioner and 4 people at large from the public. You can apply online to sit on the liquor board if you're so interested. I don't know if there's other comments you want to make about it, or
I'm just curious about the timeline. And one editorial comment: Herschel Lashkowitz was the most awesome mayor. They used to have the commission meetings on the radio because they were so entertaining. People requested them, and he would call out other commissioners to be arrested during the meeting. And so he was a little bit of my idol. And so it's sad to eliminate something that he started, but I think time was right. But it was awesome. It was like, they might say ours are hilarious a little bit too, but anyway, that's editorial comment. Can you just talk about the timeline a little bit?
So, a couple of meetings ago, we had a receive and file of the ordinance. This last meeting, I think we had the first reading, and so we would have a second reading. Then we would have to go through the applications, and I don't know that we have enough applications in yet to be on that board, to fill the board, and so we obviously have a little bit of work to do to get that done. And then there will be a huge education element where we bring people up to speed.
Just a couple of things. I mean, so it's an at-large board, and so you have to be a citizen of the city of Fargo, but anybody can apply, correct?
Correct.
And so we would want, if you're interested, we would encourage you to apply. And basically what happens is the applications will be, the staff goes through them, the mayor makes the suggestions to the commission, and the commission votes on it. The other thing we're doing is, like Steve talked about, there's a lot of technical issues with the Liquor Control Board, and so there would be 2 staggered terms. And so the first term isn't going to end after 1 year, just because it's going to take a while to learn all the intricacies. And so that's kind of the concept of what we're doing. And I don't know if anybody else has any questions, and we'll talk about this topic in the future too. But if you're interested, and if you know somebody that has a passion or would be a good member, I would encourage you to pass it along, because and basically you can just contact the city of Fargo, and they'll, if you need help, fill it on the documentation. We'll help you with that. Yep. With that, now it's 2:19. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, thank you, everybody, and have a good afternoon. We are adjourned.